Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining in. My name is Vivek. I'm the VP of Product at Indusface. And today, as part of this webinar, we'll be talking about an important problem that many organizations face, which is how do you handle unknowns? The golden rule of security is that you can protect or secure only things that you know. So as part of this webinar, we will see how an organizations can get complete visibility into all the assets that they have and ensure that they are not blindsided by unknowns, and then ensure whatever assets they have are secure. With that, let me get started. Before we go deeper into the webinar, I want to give you a quick introduction about Indusface. Indusface is a cybersecurity startup. And we are in the business of protecting web applications and APIs. So our product Aptrana plays in the WAP space, web application and API protection space. And we are proud that we are chosen as the customer choice 2 years in running in Gartner's Peer Insights Customer Choice Report. Not only that, we were also the only vendor who had been given 100% customer recommendation rating by our vendors 3 years running. And as you can see, we were rated heavily against our peers in all the segments on which it was judged against. These are our list of customers. We have customers from all over the world. We have 5,000 plus customers from 90 plus countries, and we are fast growing. With that, let's get into the crux of this webinar. Before we go into the webinar, I just wanted to quickly assess the audience, right? And how they are going about asset discovery, and is that a big problem in your organization? So there's a quick poll around, do you maintain an inventory of assets in your organization? Please do answer it. The poll is live now. We'll give about 30 seconds for audience to answer this. We'll close the poll shortly. Okay, close. Can you publish the results? Okay, great. I mean, there's about 50-60% of people who have said that there is a way to do asset discovery in their organization, which is great, and which is generally a good sign, right? So that is something that every organization should have, and there should be an habit of maintaining the list of assets and ensuring that all the assets are protected. Now let's see how the problem of not having a proper asset discovery and asset management creates a problem, and how we as Aptrana can help you solve those problems. So to understand asset discovery, first we need to understand what we mean by attack surface, right? An organization has various kind of assets, and all these assets which can be exploited as termed as attack surfaces. And these assets can generally be classified into four broad categories. One is the known asset. This is what majority of the security practitioners play in, where they know the kind of assets that they have, and they ensure that the security controls are around it. But as I started the webinar, I said the biggest problem that the organizations are facing is about the unknowns, right? There could be unknown assets like assets that have been outdated. There are assets that could have been launched for a marketing campaign, but which should have been defunct by now, but not defunct. All these are also assets of the organization, and if exploited, it could lead to issues. Then there is a gray area of impersonating assets, which is essentially somebody mask entering like you, like a company, legit company, and trying to take advantage of their customers, right? So that's a bigger challenge. And obviously there's a third-party assets where probably the organization is not owning these assets, but they are using it and they are sharing data with these third-party applications and the like. So obviously that it has its own security implications. So no matter which category of buckets the assets fall into, all these assets needs to be properly secured and proper security controls have to be put in place. Otherwise, it can lead to security risk, brand reputation risk, and the likes. Of this, one of the major areas where security practitioners has to focus on is the external attack surface area, right? So this is essentially the assets that are public facing. A recent study shows that nearly 70% of the cyber attacks that happen because of exploits on the external facing assets. And majority of the assets, not surprising, are web applications and email servers. But the challenges with this is that these public facing assets are exploding, right? One of the studies says that nearly about 600 domains are added worldwide in every minute, and about 117,000 hosts are added as part of these domains, right? So there is a huge explosion of assets worldwide. If you put any application over the net, then those assets needs to be protected, because even if you do the setup as do a simple experiment of launching an application and leaving it aside, even though it's not mission critical or anything, you would see a lot of requests coming in from unknown bots and everything, because that's how the nature of this industry works. There's always a search for assets that can be exploited, and that's how the hackers work. They try to probe for what is the weakest link, and they try to exploit for that, right? So these are the external-facing assets. That is the major risk for these for all organizations, and which is what all organizations should be concerned about. Adding to that, what we have seen from many customers is that when they do a asset discovery, when they end up doing a proper discovery process, they end up realizing that they have about 40% more assets than what they initially thought. In combination of these two, right, that 70% of external assets, attacks are happening on external assets, and organizations don't know about 40% of their assets. Both these in combination shows a huge gap, right? I mean, there would be assets, every organization that have, that might be public facing, but they are not aware of, and which is very, very much prone to attacks. And these are the assets that are generally exploited. This is also validated by some of the studies, which says that only 1% of the organizations are confident that they have visibility into 95% of the assets. And it is also because one of the reasons it is also this is the case is because it is pretty time consuming, right? And it takes a lot of time to conduct a full asset discovery. So that's what we are seeing, and that's a problem statement that I wanted to start with. So what does this lack of visibility into the assets leads to? It essentially leads to assets being live over the internet, which can eventually be exploited for various needs. And it can be sometimes due to sometimes because hackers are intentionally targeting it, sometimes it could be unintentional also. One of the such attacks, such issues that happen is the subdomain takeover. Our founder, Venkatesh Sundar, he was having a broadcast with Sunil, one of the peers in the industry who is a CISO at Lean. And this is what he had to say about his experience around subdomain takeover.
There was a case where we had a subdomain takeover. So, just for the listeners who might not be aware of what a subdomain takeover is, let's say you have a subdomain.acme.com, which points to an IP address that you own. Now, in the cloud, it can very easily happen that if you tear down your machine, that IP address could get assigned to someone else. So you still own the subdomain, but it's pointing to an IP address that someone else owns. In one such case, what happened was this happened, and our security team did not realize And this IP address was pointing to some other company's AWS instance. And then this endpoint we were using to collect a lot of our customer telemetry, how the customer is using our product. And it included some amount of PII, their email address, not a lot, but their email address and all the actions they were taking. And in this particular case, all this telemetry was going to someone else and not to us. And you could imagine, correct, that that's not good at all.
See, this is a typical example of the problem of not having visibility into all your assets, right? In this example, Sunil is talking about and web application on an asset that would have been stood up for a temporary purpose, pointing to an server for capturing the telemetries, but due to and it should have been brought down, and they ended up bringing down the server, but the application still remained live, right? So there's essentially such issues happen because of lack of visibility and without lack of tracking of what are all the assets and what are the IPs to which it is pointing to and the likes, right? So that's a typical example, and that's a kind of, it's just a simple example, but it kinds of points directly to the problem which we are trying to address. So before we go further, I just wanted to have a quick survey on how frequently do you update your asset inventory. So about 60% of you have said that you do have an asset inventory, but how often do you look at this and you revisit this? We'll start a poll quickly. Okay, we'll close the poll in another 10 seconds. We are closing the poll. Can you publish the results, please? Okay, great. About 30% of you guys say it's ad hoc, and 30% say monthly. Okay, monthly is a good frequency. Quarterly and annual, I would suggest to do it more often because applications keep changing. I mean, I would say to do it even more often than monthly. But ad hoc is somewhere that you should be more cognizant about. There should be a periodic cadence to ensure that a constant asset discovery is happening because, as I said, things keeps changing, right? In this dynamic world, in agile world, application teams keeps changing things. And as a security practitioner, you need to be on top of it. And doing a periodic and regular asset discovery is a key to it. So how does this all play out in an organization, right? As you can see, they are the key stakeholders when it comes to security. The application team, who is owner of the application, his priorities are generally, his or her priority is generally to dish out features, is to get out features and meet the business needs. They are not someone who are readily tracking security and are not someone who are really prioritizing how to fix the vulnerabilities, right? Then comes the CISO, who is generally responsible of the security of the organization or the security of the assets. So they try to track all the assets that they know of and see what are the vulnerabilities and ensure that applications are secure as they go out. And then there is a CIO who is in charge of the infrastructure, and he's looking at from the things from the infrastructure perspective and trying to keep it secure, right? But the problem, what happens is all these three key stakeholders end up being pulled in different directions because of what their needs are and what are the informations that they are working with, right? So application team are generally working with the kind of environment where they are looking to get the business priorities out, but they don't have complete visibility into how secure the application is and everything. And then the CISO team is looking at what are the assets they know of and what are the vulnerabilities, but they are again working in silos without knowing complete information around how the infrastructure security is playing around. What if there are X number of vulnerabilities found in an application? Should everything need to be immediately fixed in the application, or can some be mitigated through secondary controls like WAF and other things? So they don't have that visibility in place, and they end up essentially prioritizing or pushing app team to fix all these vulnerabilities, which eventually becomes a tug of war. And whereas now the CIO team again works in his own silos, where he's trying to keep his infrastructure secure. He's looking at outside in how his infrastructure is secure, how his secondary controls are working, security controls are working, but he is not actually aware of what is the risk posture of his application, right? What the applications or the assets he's hosting, which eventually means that everybody are working with disjoint informations and trying to keep the organization secure, but which kinds of falls apart, right? And which eventually leads to problems like assets getting exposed over the public without having the right security controls in place. This could be because of the unknown assets and other outdated assets. There could be assets that are live with unknown vulnerabilities, right? There are vulnerabilities that could be exploited, which generally gets exploited by the hackers, leading to breach and the likes. And when these issues happen, it again leads to a problem of customers not able to get to the bottom of the issues, mainly because of the lack of coherent information, right? So these are the kind of problems that we are hearing from the customer. So what is the solution, right? How do you solve for it? Imagine a situation where the CIO, who is the owner of the infra, CISO, who is the owner of the security, and app team, who is owner of the applications, are on the same page because of the information that they have, where they are working with the same kind of informations across the team, right? So everybody is given the same information. They have a single source of information for ensuring that the application is secure. At the end of the day, application team does not really want to send an application out which is insecure, right? It's not even in their best interest to do it. But it is just that because most of the time they don't have the complete visibility, they end up taking calls which might lead to security risk. Similarly, the CISO generally doesn't want to slow down a development process just for the sake of getting all the vulnerabilities fixed, right? As long as the CISO has the visibility and the confidence to know that, hey, my applications, no matter as the application goes out, the security controls which are in place are working effectively, then there is enough time for the applications to be fixed in the 4 level and the likes. Then the CISO would be always ready to let go of the applications and get and make the application go live. And for the CIOs, it's the same thing. As they are focusing over the infrastructure, knowing how well their security controls they have in place are working and how it is securing the applications, that gives them more information and good control around how the protection will work. So then they won't be becoming a bottleneck when new assets are being deployed and other things, right? So that's the kind of power you get when there all these 3 important stakeholders or the 3 teams get the right information at the right time. And that is what we try to do using our Aptrana solution. Aptrana is the first solution in the market in the WAP space, which has taken a risk-based approach to application security. When I say risk-based approach, what we mean is for any assets that is onboarded behind Aptrana, we ensure that we identify all the vulnerabilities that are there in the application. We have our own automated scanner. We complement it with manual pen testing, ensuring that the complete risk posture of application is known. And not only that, we also show that how the secondary controls, the WAF, which is being deployed, helps in protecting these vulnerabilities. It gives you a clear visibility into, say, there are 100 vulnerabilities. Out of that 100 vulnerabilities, 70 of them are already protected, 20 of them can be protected by custom rules, and 10 needs to be fixed in code. So now this gives a clear information, for example, to the CISO to saying that, hey, this 10 vulnerabilities needs to be fixed. And they can push the application team to just fix the test vulnerabilities. The application team knowing that, hey, it is just one deal is 10, but it is critical to be fixed because there are no security controls, they will end up prioritizing it and they end up fixing it. The CIO, now knowing that how the secondary controls are working, he will be more willing to get those assets out to live without much of a bottleneck, right? So that's the kind of uniform platform we have built. But one of the problems still that was remaining that needs to be addressed was, what do you do about unknown assets, right? So now an application was getting onboarded behind Aptrana only if the asset is known, right? So if the CISO knows, the CIO knows about the asset, they ensure that the application is onboarded behind Aptrana, all the security controls are put in place, the vulnerabilities are detected, they are patched before the application goes live. But this happens only if they know about the assets. What about the unknown assets, right? So the part about asset discovery was something that we were hearing a lot from our customers, and that is the reason why we have now released the asset discovery portion as part of our portfolio, right? So with this asset discovery, what we'll be able to do is we'll be able to identify what are all the external facing assets that you have as part of your organizations. We'll be giving you complete visibility into, hey, what are the domains, what are the subdomains, what are the IPs, whether these applications are mobile APIs or mobile or web assets, whether they are part of a data center. All these information will be available, and it will be available with a single click, right? And it won't take you hours and days to do this. It will be available as a single click, and it will be available directly in the portal. Let me give you a quick demo about this. So this is part of my portal. So just going to log in and show you how the asset discovery will look like, right? So this is part of, this is my VAS portal where we do the scanning part of things. As part of it, now we have also introduced asset discovery. So now we have done an asset discovery for our organization, and it gives you the complete list of the external facing assets that is part of the organization. So you get a complete view into how many domains are there, how many subdomains, what are the IPs, whether it is part of an AWS, where it is hosted, whether it's a website, which domain does these applications are part of, right? And the best part about this is you could obviously ignore some of these assets if it is a kind of not something that you are looking to be part of your list. But it also tells you whether it is already protected or not protected, right? And if it is not protected, you can quickly add it to the part to be part of the protection, right? And it automatically initiates the onboarding and then starts the protection aspect. And once the assets are protected, it is automatically onboarded into Aptrana and you get the protection going, right? And this is where the magic happens, where once the asset is onboarded, you get the detection and the protection as part of the single piece, as part of our Aptrana product. So this is my Aptrana client portal. I'm going to give you a quick demo about how these things work, because that it just flows well into how the asset discovery and the other problem statements I was speaking. So once you have identified the assets and once it is onboarded behind Aptrana, you can, when you log into the portal, you'll see the what we call as the executive dashboard, which gives you the high-level trend of how the protection is working, what are the various attacks over various days, and how what are the various vulnerabilities found, and the likes. It also gives you information around the various action centers, what are the various actions that needs to be done to improve the protection for your assets. And the best part, which I told about, and when you are looking to dig deeper into the applications, you can go to overview page. And here is what the key piece which I was talking about, right? As part of onboarding into Aptrana, you get the scanner. Now the scanner identifies the vulnerabilities after completing the scan. And it also gives you a clear view of how the protection is working. So this is the information that is very valuable for the CISOs, the application team, and the CIOs, right? It tells you that, hey, out of the 100 odd vulnerabilities that were identified, 74 are already protected by core rules, and 30 are protected by custom rules. Further few vulnerabilities can be protected by requesting custom rules, and some needs to be fixed in the code. So this is the part which has to be fixed in the code, and this is the information that the CISO team has to pass on to the application team to ensure that those vulnerabilities are being patched, are being fixed in the code. The others can be patched in the WAF layer, ensuring that these doesn't become a roadblock for releases, right? So that's the power of it. And the customers can get this information directly from the portal just by single click, right? So they get this information, and this is the information that they can go and look for. If you want to look for all the other types of vulnerabilities, you can anyway look at it, and we give you a clear visibility on how the protection is working, whether it is protected by advanced rules, premium rules, or custom rules. And if there can be protected by custom rules and custom rules are not applied, then customers can quickly request for a custom rule from here. The request will go to our security team, who would write a surgically accurate rule for you. As part of our solution, we provide a managed service where we ensure that the solution works for you. And we, as an organization, believe that security is an expert's job, and it should not be asked by the customers to tweak the WAF policies, right? So we do the heavy lifting for the customers. We write these surgically accurate rules, ensuring that protections are up to date and are without any false positives. We nearly 100% of all our applications that are onboarded behind us are remain in block mode. The reason why that is again because of the managed service, where as part of our onboarding, we ensure that the false positives are removed, and the policies are fine-tuned based on the application's need, ensuring the protection works as per the customer's need, right? So that's the power of this, and this is a major part which I wanted to highlight. Customers can request for automated scans anytime they want. And even the part about asset discovery, right? This asset discovery can be done anytime you want by a single click of a button, ensuring that you can be up to date, right? Instead of many people say that they do it ad hoc once a month and probably some quarterly. Now you can even do it daily and weekly, right? So that's the power that we bring to the hands of the security practitioners. Apart from that, Aptrana is a complete platform when it comes from the application security piece. We bundle with it a sophisticated DDoS protection solution and also the bot protection solution. So that's something that we provide as part of Aptrana with no additional costs, ensuring that we provide a comprehensive protection to our customers, right? So that's a quick demo about how the asset discovery and Aptrana works. And this is something that we wanted to highlight as part of this webinar. With that, I come to the end of my webinar. And I have a quick poll question. So it's just that if you are, would you be, based on the demo I provided, would you be interested for a complete demo on how the entire asset discovery and risk detection and risk protection piece would work in a more comprehensive manner? The poll is started. We'll wait for you to answer the polls. We'll give you another 10 seconds to answer the poll. Okay, we'll be closing the poll now. With that, we come to the end of the webinar. So, as I said, this is Aptrana is our web platform which is the only solution in the market which provides a risk-based approach to web application firewall. So we have a complete platform which gives a complete protection for both web applications, APIs, and mobile apps. So we start with discovery. We are able to identify the external facing assets that are part of your application. These assets can be quickly onboarded into the AppTurner platform, which will then help you do the risk detection, identify what are the risk postures of your application, then see how the WAF is protecting these applications, right? How are these vulnerabilities stack up against these against the WAF? How these vulnerabilities are protected, how many of these vulnerabilities are protected, and how many needs to be fixed in the code, which gives you a complete visibility on what needs to be prioritized. And not only that, we bundle it with a bot and DDoS protection solutions, giving a most comprehensive protection for your application. Last but not least, it is bundled with our managed service solution. And we also have integrated CDN, ensuring that you don't have to compromise speed for security. All in all, it gives you a complete comprehensive protection for securing your web apps and APIs. With that, we come to the end of this webinar. I'm open for questions now. Please feel free to drop in any questions. I'll be happy to answer. You can unmute and ask questions if needed. So, someone has asked, how is this? How is it better than Imperva Cloud Web? So, Imperva is our competition, and then as I said, as part of our entire webinar, the key piece that differentiates us with our competition is the risk-based approach that we provide. Imperva does not do the asset discovery, which I have shown, and it does not do the risk discovery. It's shown. So they provide a WAF solution, and yes, they are and they provide a cloud WAF with managed set of rules and the likes. But there is no mapping with how it is working against your application, what are the vulnerabilities that are found, how are they protecting against the WAF layers. That's not the kind of visibility that you'll get with Imperva. And that's a key differentiator, apart from obviously the other things like the behavioral DDoS protection that we provide and the risk-based bot protection that we provide. Is there any other questions? No questions?
AppTurner has now enabled users to create their own rules on web. The question is, once I enroll an asset to go under AppTurner, does the create your own rules feature apply to the latest added asset as well?
Yes, it does, right? It depends on how you have. Okay, somebody has asked, we have the self-managed rules where customers can create their own rules. So when a new application is added, they have asked whether the assets, whether the rules that they have created will apply for the new assets also. Yes, it will, depending on how the rules have been created. If the rules have been created in such a way that it is applied for all the applications protected by the customer, then yes, for the new assets also the rules will kick
in. Can you reiterate the major difference between risk detection and asset discovery?
So major difference between risk detection and asset discovery is that, see, asset discovery tries to solve the problem of unknowns, right? So you can identify the vulnerabilities that are there in an application as long as you know the application is there. what if you do not know whether the application is there, right? If the application, the application team has created some application for beta purpose, or a marketing team has created an application, but the security team is not aware of. There could be various such applications that are part of the organization that does not go through the normal process and does not have the same security controls, right? So that's the big piece of the puzzle, right? Where there are unknowns that the security practitioners are not aware of. What the asset discovery piece does is it tries to find those unknowns. So the asset discovery scan, it scans outside and it looks from the perspective of internet. It tries to probe the various assets, or the various, it uses various heuristics and tries to see what are the assets that are part of your organization, right? It uses various informations like what is your registered email ID and other things, and it tries to find out a comprehensive list of assets that are public facing as part of your application. That is asset discovery. And once you have done the asset discovery, now you can onboard it behind Aptrana, and then the risk detection will start, where now for the asset that has been discovered, you try to identify what is the vulnerability that are there. So that's the second part of it, right? So first you have to find the assets. Only if you know these are the assets, then you can initiate risk discovery out of it and then risk protection for it, right? So that's how we are bundling this, and we are providing a comprehensive platform.
What would be the prerequisite for asset discovery?
That's pretty much no prerequisite, because this is more like we are using heuristics like how an attacker would do to try and find an assets of an organization. So all we would need is probably the email ID of your organization. If you know any domains, then probably give those domains to us, because that all those adds as an input to the heuristics to ensure that we provide a comprehensive list of assets that you have. So these are the information that we need, but we can start with as simple as your email ID and then go and do the discovery.
How to protect firewall port to external attacker without configuring AD domain?
Sorry.
Add domain. How to protect firewall port to external attacker without configuring add domain?
You have to onboard the application behind us to protect, right? Because otherwise we can discover it, and to an extent we can do the risk discovery, also identify the vulnerabilities that are there in application. But to protect the application, we have to become inline to the application. So obviously the traffic has to be to us to protect it. At least that's how the protection would work. I'm not sure if I'm answering the question rightly, but
how accurate is this asset discovery?
Again, we try to be as accurate as possible, but this is again a heuristic-based detection. So we cannot claim 100% accuracy, but over period, as we iterate, right, as you give more information and we know more information about the organization, the accuracy of these results become more and more better. And we have provided controls to the customers to remove any false positives, if any.
Is there any separate license for VAS or just one license for all, including Aptrana? So
Aptrana gets the entire piece, where Aptrana comes with asset discovery, risk detection, risk protection, and the likes. VAS is also sold as a separate component, where we do just the asset discovery and risk detection. So depending on what the customer is looking for, if they are just looking for risk detection piece and asset discovery, then they can opt for VAS. If they are looking for asset discovery plus risk detection plus risk protection, then they can opt for the Aptrana license.
How much time does it take for DDoS detection and mitigation?
So DDoS detection and mitigation generally starts with 5 seconds. So from the time of first first attack, within 5 seconds, the first mitigation happens. And then there is a series of escalating protection layers that kicks in until the DDoS is completely thwarted and attack stops. Any other questions? This has been lively, so appreciate that. If you have any other questions, please feel free to ask.
To help IDS and IPS configure to protect the server?
I mean, I don't see, we are not an IDS IPS provider, so we would not be the right players to answer that question. Sorry.
I think you also launched API discovery. Can you explain how that works?
Yeah, great. So API discovery is also something that we have recently launched. This is part of our Aptrana solution. So what we do is, as part of the traffic that comes to the server that is being protected by Aptrana, we monitor this traffic and we discover the APIs. One of the biggest problem around API security is the API discovery. Similar to asset discovery, and the problem, you can only protect when you know about it. And with APIs, the biggest problem is that there is very limited documentations within the organization and everything. And APIs are built by app team without much knowledge or much visibility into the security teams. So the security team is not aware of all the APIs, and then they are not aware of what are the security controls that needs to be put in place for those APIs. So to address that problem, as part of Aptrana, we have also released API discovery, which would eventually do a discovery of the APIs from the traffic. It will identify what are the APIs, what are the definitions of the APIs. It will identify the, and then it will create the Swagger files. And from the Swagger files, create a positive security model. So that's the complete piece that we have done as part of our API security, and that's something that we have provided as part of our API security module in Aptrana. So this, along with the API, also comes with risk detection, where we have our own API scanner, which will help you identify the vulnerabilities. So you can discover the APIs, you can identify the vulnerabilities in the APIs, and then you can protect it using both positive and negative security model. So that again gives you the complete piece from the API protection perspective.
Does Aptrana have SSL offloading feature?
Not really, because we are a cloud web. So how it works is the traffic to an application hits us first, but it's a cloud infrastructure. Then hits the origin. Right now, the origin, the communication between Aptrana to the origin happens over the internet. So it is in the best interest of security that we have to encrypt the traffic and send it to the origin, right? So it's not a limitation that we cannot do it. It is just because of the security concerns that might arise by we doing the security offloading, that we avoid to do security SSL offloading at our end. Any other questions? Or I think we are at the end of the webinar, right? Thank you. Thanks for all these questions, and it was lively. Thank you. Thanks for joining in. Pleasure.